Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to be walking you through how to create assessments with Google Forms. Now this is one of my favorite tools to use in the classroom, and it's a great way to assess students and deliver feedback quickly and instantaneously, or to be able to even allow comments and to add comments to their responses as well. So it is a great feature, and today I'm going to walk you through this. And this is going to be really helpful if you're thinking about going through the Google Educator Level 1 or Level 2 exams. We're going to go really into forms today. And what I do encourage you to do is, as we're going through this video, to also have up Google Forms in another tab or on another device. That way you can kind of play along with it as well. All right, so some of our goals today are to create a Google form that contains a variety of question types, such as short answer, multiple choice, checkbox, paragraph answers. We're going to adjust the theme and style of the Google form. We're going to set up the Google form. I'll teach you two different ways, automatic or manual grading. I'll show you how to create a password to lock the Google form, and then how you can view and analyze your assessment results through Forms and also Google Sheets. So those are our goals today. Your first thing that you're going to want to do is open up a Google form. Now, if you want to and you're interested, you can come in and you can edit the form and kind of make it a different color or add a different header. And that's up in the color palette menu. And I'm just going to select a different color, and you can see it changes it right away. Now, if you want, you can even come in and add specific images. And when you do that, you'll see that it adds the image across the top. Now for me, I usually have specific colors represent different assessments or quizzes or tests. So I'm going to leave it orange. And now we're going to start creating our form. So I'm going to title this Adding Integers Mastery Quiz. So that's the title of my form. And if you look up towards the left, it says Untitled Form, but if you click on that, it's going to change it to the title that you just created, okay? Now, when you're creating an assessment, it's very good to gather student information. One of the most important pieces of information that you want to gather from your students is their email address. Now, you can have them input their email address manually, but for my students, it's based on their student ID number, which is sort of complicated. So I usually come up to settings and then do collect email address. Now, a couple other things in here that I don't select is I don't limit it to one response, because I do allow them that option to go back and resubmit an assessment one more time after they've originally submitted it. I don't usually allow them to edit after submit or to see a summary of charts and text responses, but that's really up to you, and it's a personal preference. But make sure when you're done, you click Save. And depending on how your domain is set up, it might actually have them put in an email address, but if I was on my school domain, it actually just collects it, and the students don't even have to put their email address in at all. It's a little bit different since I'm on my personal account. Someone will have to put in their email address, but it will ensure that it is a valid email address when they're writing that in. Now, a few other pieces of important information to collect would be their first name. And what you're going to do is change that to short answer, and make sure that it is required so students have to answer it. Now there's a couple ways to create another question type. You can duplicate it or add question. Since I'm going to do last name and that's almost the same, I'm just going to duplicate it and change it to last name. All right, now another thing, if you're a secondary teacher, that might be useful is to know their class period. So this time I'm going to come up to add question and click on that button and write class period. And change that to, let's do a drop down. And I'm actually going to give them the options this time. And one of the reasons that I do this is that way students can, basically they're all submitting the exact same format. Because what if I have one student write in class period as 1, and one writes it as 1, and another writes it as period 1? That's not going to be very easy to sort my data later, and it's going to be a little bit messy. So this makes it a lot cleaner. And make sure that it is required. So now we've gotten all our student information. Some other pieces of important information that I know some teachers will use is like student ID or teacher, but I'm just going to put this in for today. So that is setting up and gathering student information. Now let's start making our quiz. Now I love using this button right here, which is called Add Section, to separate our student information from our quiz. So if I select Add Section, you can see it puts a break in the page. And now maybe this is the mastery quiz. So this was all student information. It's on the first page. And this is the mastery quiz. Now, if you want to see what this is looking like, up towards the top right, there is a preview button. You can come up, click preview, and you can even start to fill it out and kind of see what that looks like. And as you can see, all the student information is on the first page. And once we start filling this in, our mastery quiz will be on the second page. So we're going to create 5 different question types today. So the first one we're going to create is a short answer. So maybe I have a very simple question. I'm going to title this question number 1. Maybe it's 4 minus a negative 6. I'm going to make sure it's required. So short answer means that students have to write in a specific answer to answer the question. Now this time I'm going to do a multiple choice. So maybe I'll say negative, let's make it a question number. I'll say negative 3 is equivalent to, and then give them several options. So maybe I'll do 4 minus a negative 7. And then I'll do 3 minus 6, 6 minus 3, it's a 0, 0 minus a negative 3. And again, make sure it is required. So now we've got a short answer where they have to put in a specific answer, a multiple choice where they can select one. Now let's do a checkbox. This is where they have to put in several answers. So maybe I'll do a similar question as I did before. So 6 is equivalent to, but this time I'm going to have a couple of correct answers. And if they don't select all of the correct answers, they won't get the question right. So I can do negative 3 minus a negative 9. So that'll be one of our correct answers. We'll do 9 minus a negative 3. 3 minus 3. Let's do 0 minus negative 6. I'm kind of thinking of these on the fly right now. So this one has a couple of correct answers, the first one and the last one, so they'll have to select both for these checkboxes. All right, so another one we could also do is we could do a drop down. I don't use that one too often. Mostly I just use that for class periods. But I could say when adding two integers with opposite signs, you must, so blank, and keep the sign of the higher absolute value. So then I can give some options. So add, subtract, they'll put in multiply and divide. And again, let's make sure it is required. And then let's do a paragraph answer. So this one's going to require students to basically be a little bit more detailed. So maybe I'll ask them, when adding two integers with the same sign, or no, let's make it more of a question. So how about explain how you would add two integers with the same signs and make it required. So that gave us a lot of different question types. So we've got short answer, multiple choice, check boxes, drop down, and a paragraph. A couple of other great features here, add title and description. Let's say I wanted to have everything on the same page still, but this section is going to be about multiplying and dividing. I could create a new section, and that will separate it from the section above, but keep it on the same page. I could also add in an image, and you could upload them, take a snapshot, you could do by URL. You could choose from your albums or your Google Drive, or you could just do an image search. So maybe I'm like, oh, I want to give my students this number line to use. I'm going to put that in, and it just automatically pops up. And I could say, use this number line to help you on your mastery quiz. Now, if I want to move this, maybe I don't want this at the bottom, I can choose these 6 dots and just start dragging them up. Maybe I'll put it at the very, very top. And then I can even add in a video if I wanted to. And it has to come from YouTube or a specific URL, but it still has to be a YouTube video. So maybe I want to add in an integers video for students to review before their mastery quiz. I'd select it and add it in. I could make it bigger just by dragging the edges. And I could even center it by clicking the little options and choose center. And then if I don't want it, and if there's ever any point there's something you don't want, you can just click delete and it will go away. But let's just double check our form real quick. So I'm going to preview it. So I like that my email address, first name, last name, and class period are in there. That looks good. And let's just see if our format of our quiz looks good. So as you can see, it looks really nice. The check or the little asterisks tell you that those are required questions that students have to answer. So if you're a student, you're like, oh, I have to answer this question. I can't go any further until I answer this question. I can't submit it. All right, so let's look at our goals. We've created a form that has a variety of question types. We've adjusted the theme. Right now, we're going to do these two kind of at the same time. We're going to set up the form for grading and create a password to lock the form. So to create a password is kind of a cool thing because you might have students that are taking the same quiz across different classes all throughout the day. So what you could do is come back up to your information, like your student information. And remember, that's on a separate page. So click on class period. And when we click on that, we're going to add a new question type right below it. And we're going to call it password. And we're going to make this a short answer and make sure that it is required, or else it doesn't matter. Students could just move on if it isn't required. Now, this is kind of an interesting way to create a password, but what you can do is come to these 3 dots and choose response validation. Now I'm not going to choose a number. I want to use like text. I want to use letters and numbers and all sorts of things. And it's going to contain, I could create something just really random. Now I have to put something in custom error text, and let me show you why. If I preview it and I don't put in a custom error text, you're going to see it tells you exactly what that password must be. So it's super important that you do choose a custom error text, something like get the password from Mrs. Kelly. Now, what this does is it prevents students from being able to go forward. They can put in all their information, their class period, but if they don't put in the right password, it's not going to let them go forward. They have to have the correct password given to them by their teachers to be able to move to the next page. What's great about this is you could even change this from class to class. That way students can't access it. But it's a great way just to kind of lock down and add some more security to your assessment. Now let's get into the part that you're probably most interested in, which is creating the grading. So come up to settings. And presentation is really just more information about setting up your form. If you want to add a progress bar, you can. Shuffle question order is not one I usually choose because it will shuffle all the questions you have. So it might put in email address first, but then question number 1, followed by class period, followed by question number 4. So it basically mixes up your entire form when you do shuffle question order. So I don't usually pick that one. And then if you want, you can add a confirmation message at the end that says something like, great job, you finished your quiz. Now to set up the quiz, you go to quizzes and you choose make this a quiz. Now there's 2 different options for how to release the grades. That could be later after immediately after each submission, or later after manual review. Most of the time I do immediately after each submission because all the questions that I have are like short response and students have to put in a specific type of answer. And I can set that up so it grades it right away. But sometimes I might put in a question like a paragraph, like you saw that we added, and that requires me to go in and grade it by hand. So when I do that, I must choose later after manual review. If I do not do that, it will actually mark all of those questions like that are in paragraph type that require you to grade them as wrong until you grade it, which kind of freaks out the students. Now, I always allow my respondents to see the questions they missed when they get their scores back, but I usually don't allow them to see the correct answers because I want them to be able to go back and see what they did wrong and resubmit. And then it is okay for them to see their point values as well. And then I'm going to save this. So this time we're doing later after manual review. If you have a much simpler quiz where you don't have questions that you need to go in and grade, you can just choose immediately after each submission, and it will automatically give them their score the minute they finish their quiz. But I wanted to show you guys a little bit the more in-depth version. That way, if you wanted to have paragraph type questions, you could do that. Now, when we come down to our quiz, we need to select our first question to add our answer. And when we select it, you can see there's a new option here that says answer key. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in the correct answer, which is 10. But I can even add more than one correct answer. So maybe some students write it as 10 and some students write it as positive 10. Either of those answers would be correct. Now, very important, you must assign a point value. So instead of 0, make it 1, 2, 3, whatever it is that you want that to be, because if it is 0, it's not going to grade it. Well, it'll grade it, but it won't assign any points towards it. All right, so with multiple choice, we'll go into answer key again, and we will select the correct answer. And let's go to number 3. This one has 2 correct answers, so we need to make sure we select both. So the first one, and I believe it was the last one. For number 4, we had 1 correct answer. So when adding 2 integers, you must subtract and keep the sign of the higher value. Oh, and you can see I totally failed at actually adding in the points, which is super important, or else it will grade it but won't give it point value. Now the last question is a paragraph answer. You could add in feedback if you wanted to, such as, review your notes for how to add integers with the same sign. But that's up to you if you want to add that. And so that would give feedback for all of those answers. And if you don't want it, you can just delete it. But maybe on a paragraph answer where I'm asking them to write a little bit more, I'm going to give them a couple points for that one. All right, so our quiz is all set up. So what we are going to do now is I'm going to actually submit as if I was a student. That way we've got some responses to play with. I need to make sure I put in my password and answer the question. So this gives you a moment to kind of go in and play around with it as well. So add your answers in. So I'm going to choose some of these are correct, and then I'll have some of these be incorrect. So I'm adding 2 integers with the same sign, add and keep the sign. I'll submit. And then I'm going to do another one with another email address. Let's do play at boostedu.org. I'm going to choose a different name. Actually, let's just do it. Let's do Megan and then a different name, last name. Put in your password. And maybe this student is struggling a little bit more and they're not getting all of them correct. And we'll just say add. All right, so I added a couple of responses in there. As you can see, as I submit these, it allows them to submit another response, but it's not telling them their score yet because we chose that later after manual review. Now to view the responses, you're going to come up to responses, and you'll see 3 options. Summary, which tells you the kind of like average score so far. But remember, we haven't graded that last question, which is why it's saying it's not released. We can see kind of the different first names, last names. Then you could even come down here and see what are the responses per question. So that is very useful. You can say, oh, cool, everyone got number 4 right. And here's all the different question types right here for number 5 and the different answers. Now you can also come in and look at questions, and I can see, oh, there's 2 ungraded responses. So if I click on them, I can click by email address and then view those questions, which is really helpful. And basically, I could kind of look at all of them if I wanted to. Now, the question that we're looking at, though, is number 5. And so what's really, really great about this under question type is that I can grade them all at once. Whereas if I go into individual, I'm going to have to scroll through, and I'm going to have to find their question and then go to the next student and scroll through. So you can see that's kind of, it's not real simple. But if I do question type and I choose question 5, which was our open response, I can see all of the different types of answers, and I can go in and go, oh, this was a good answer. I'm going to mark it as correct. It gives them the full 2 points. Okay, so this one is correct, but it's not. And so if I hit mark as incorrect, it marks it with a 0. But maybe I'm like, well, they got half the question right, so I'm going to make it 1. All right, so I've saved that. And you'll also start to see kind of the scores change. So the median, and that changes their scores, because otherwise they would have been given a score that would have marked that last question wrong. Now, you can also go in and view the results from Create a Spreadsheet. So that is that little green button right here. I really like this option because it makes it very easy to put the scores into a gradebook. So I can come in and I can see, oh, okay, here's the student's first name and their last name, and here's the scores that they are getting. And I can even come in and look at all of their different answers. And kind of what I was saying that I really like is I can sort this. I can sort it from Z to A, or I can sort it by last name from A to Z. And what's nice about that is then I just go into my gradebook and I can just put down 5, 3, 4, whatever that score was. So this is really helpful for inputting your grades. Okay, so this is a Google Sheet that is linked to this Google form. And this is usually, again, where I tend to grab the scores from, but you can grab them from here too. And you can look at like the individual scores. Now, what you can see is that the scores are not released. Now, you can release them by individual students, or if you come back to the summary, you can choose to release all the scores. Okay, and so all the emails, different emails will pop up, and you could add a message and you can say, here are your scores for the adding integers mastery quiz. And if you received below a 70%, you will need to do tutorials. So that's something I just have my students do. So I can send emails and release those scores. And then down here, you'll see those scores now are released on February 17th at 12:56 p.m. So now I'm going to show you my email, because when I go in, I can see that I've gotten a response. So I can come over here to my email, open it up, and I can see, oh, here's my score. I didn't do so well. I got a 3 out of 6. I can view it by going in and seeing all that I got incorrect. It's not telling me the correct answers, but I can see what I got wrong. And then, like in my class, I allow them to do what's called tutorials to be able to improve their grade. So at this point, I believe we've kind of hit all of our goals and objectives. And again, if you're looking for being a Google educator, this really gives you a big overview of how to create assessments with Google Forms. So hopefully I was able to give you a good overview. And if you have any questions or any ideas or anything that you want to share, please feel free to share in the comments on YouTube or on my blog. Thank you.